"Officer, that's him. That's the man I've been calling about." The sharp voice cut through the quiet Saturday afternoon, echoing across the neatly kept lawns of Oak Ridge Estates. Neighbors paused what they were doing almost instinctively. A father watering his flowers lowered the hose. A teenager walking his dog slowed to a stop. Curtains shifted ever so slightly as people peeked through their front windows. Two patrol officers stepped out of their cruiser, their expressions calm but alert. They had responded to several calls from this neighborhood over the past few weeks, each one describing suspicious activity at the same address. Their eyes settled on a tall black man standing beside a moving truck in the driveway of a beautiful two-story colonial home. He wasn't arguing. He wasn't shouting. He simply stood there with a sealed cardboard box balanced comfortably in his arms. The word kitchen was written across the side in thick black marker. Sweat darkened the collar of his faded brown flannel shirt. After hours of unloading furniture beneath the warm North Carolina sun, the woman, pointing at him, marched across her perfectly trimmed lawn without hesitation. Donna Carter was dressed in an immaculate cream-colored pantsuit that looked as though it had never seen a wrinkle. Her posture was rigid, her chin raised high with absolute confidence. "I told dispatch this would happen," she declared loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "He's back again." The taller officer glanced between Donna and the man in the driveway. "Ma'am," he asked evenly, "can you explain exactly what's happening?" Donna folded her arms. "He's trespassing." The black man looked at the officers with surprising calm. "No, sir," he replied respectfully. "The family and I live here," Donna scoffed. "Live here?" she repeated with a laugh that carried across the street. "I've lived in Oak Ridge Estates for 24 years. I know every homeowner on this block." She pointed toward the front porch. "I've never seen him before." Several neighbors exchanged uncertain looks, but remained silent. The younger officer took a few careful steps toward the driveway. "Sir," he said politely, "would you mind showing us some identification?" "Of course, officer," without the slightest sign of frustration. The man gently lowered the moving box onto the porch. He brushed the dust from his hands before reaching slowly into his back pocket. Everything about his movements reflected years of discipline. No sudden gestures, no raised voice, no attempt to challenge the officers. Only quiet cooperation. The older patrol officer noticed it immediately. Experience had taught him that truly dangerous situations rarely looked like this. Still, every call deserved a professional response. That responsibility mattered. Police officers could not ignore a citizen's report simply because they suspected it might be exaggerated. Their duty was to verify the facts fairly, protect everyone's rights, and ensure every interaction remained respectful. The younger officer accepted the driver's license with a courteous nod. "Thank you, sir." As he examined the identification, Donna stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound confidential. "I've been telling your department about this house for weeks." She whispered, "Something about them just doesn't seem right." The officer didn't answer. Instead, he looked from the license to the address printed on it. Then he looked toward the elegant home behind the man, a moving truck. Furniture stacked neatly inside, family photographs visible through the open front door, children's bicycles resting near the garage. Nothing suggested criminal activity. Everything suggested a family beginning a new chapter. Across the porch, a black woman stepped outside carrying a small box filled with framed family pictures. She paused when she saw the patrol car, concerned briefly crossing her face before she composed herself. She walked down the steps with quiet confidence until she stood beside her husband. "Is everything all right, officers?" she asked warmly. Her voice carried neither fear nor anger, only dignity. The older officer offered a reassuring smile. "We're simply following up on a complaint, ma'am." She nodded. "We understand." She reached over and gently took her husband's hand for a moment, offering silent encouragement before looking back at the officers. "We've worked very hard to buy this home," she said. "If there's anything you need to verify, we're happy to help." The younger officer looked once more at the identification in his hand, unaware that the small leather badge wallet resting inside the man's back pocket held a truth that would soon change everything. The younger officer handed the driver's license back with the same professionalism he had shown from the moment he stepped out of the patrol car. "Thank you, sir." The man accepted it with a polite smile. "My name is Marcus Bennett." The officer nodded as if committing the name to memory. I'm Officer Ryan Collins, and this is Officer Hernandez. We appreciate your cooperation, Marcus. Glanced toward the moving truck, where half of his family's belongings still waited to be unloaded. Every box represented years of sacrifice, long shifts, postponed vacations, and careful budgeting. It has been a busy day, he said with a quiet laugh. Officer Collins smiled, I can imagine. Before either officer could say another word, Donna Carter folded her arms again. So that's it, she demanded. You're just going to take his word for it. Officer Hernandez remained calm. No, ma'am, we verify every complaint before reaching a conclusion. Donna shook her head dramatically. I've lived in Oak Ridge Estates for almost 25 years. I know every family on this street. The previous owners never told anyone they sold the house. Marcus listened without interrupting. Angela Bennett stood beside him, holding a family photo album. Against her chest she had learned long ago that responding with anger rarely changed someone's heart. Instead, she chose grace. We closed on the property last Friday, Angela explained kindly. Everything was finalized through a local real estate company. Donna barely looked at her. I wasn't talking to you. For a brief moment, the air became painfully quiet. Several neighbors watched from their driveways. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked away completely. Officer Collins noticed the tension immediately. He had spent 8 years wearing the uniform, and one lesson had stayed with him through every assignment. Sometimes people didn't call the police because a crime had happened. Sometimes they called because they wanted the badge to validate their personal opinions. His responsibility was to separate assumptions from facts. He looked toward Marcus. Sir, would you mind showing us proof of ownership? Closing documents would be perfect, absolutely. Marcus walked inside the front door, disappearing for only a few seconds, before returning with a neatly organized folder. Angela smiled softly. I told him we'd need that folder today, Marcus chuckled. My wife always plans 3 steps ahead. Officer Hernandez accepted the paperwork and carefully reviewed each page. Purchase agreement, closing disclosure, property deed. Every signature matched, every address matched, everything was exactly as it should be. He handed the folder back with genuine respect. Congratulations on your new home. Angela's face brightened. Thank you, it really is beautiful. It feels like a dream, she admitted. Marcus looked at the white columns stretching across the front porch. For years we drove through neighborhoods like this after church on Sundays. We'd tell our daughter that one day, if we kept working hard and stayed patient, we'd have a place to call our own. Angela smiled. We made a lot of sacrifices. Marcus nodded. There were birthdays when I worked overtime, vacations. We skipped nights, we stayed home instead of eating out. He looked toward the house again, but every decision brought us here. Officer Collins couldn't help smiling. My parents did the same thing, he said. They saved for nearly 15 years before buying their first house. Marcus extended his hand then. You know exactly what today means. The officer shook it firmly. I do, Donna let out an impatient sigh. I can't believe this, nobody responded. She looked around, almost expecting the neighbors to support her. Most simply avoided eye contact. One elderly couple quietly returned to planting flowers near their mailbox. A father picked up the basketball his son had accidentally stopped bouncing while watching the conversation. Life slowly resumed. Officer Hernandez turned back toward Donna. Mom, we've verified that the Bennett family legally owns this property. Her expression hardened. There must be something you missed. We followed department procedure. They don't belong here. The words hung in the air. Angela heard them. Marcus heard them. So did every neighbor within earshot. Officer Collins spoke carefully, choosing every word with purpose. Ma'am, in this country, every family who legally purchases a home has the same rights and protections under the law. Hannah's face tightened. I was only trying to protect the neighborhood. We appreciate citizens reporting genuine concerns. Officer Hernandez replied respectfully, but our duty is to protect every resident equally, without making assumptions about who belongs. Angela felt tears sting the corners of her eyes, not because of Donna's words, but because someone wearing the uniform had chosen fairness over prejudice. Marcus gently squeezed her hand. He knew that trust between communities and law enforcement was built one respectful interaction at a time. The officers returned to their cruiser after wishing the family well. As the patrol car slowly pulled away from the curb, Marcus picked up another moving box, while Angela opened the front door once again, determined that nothing, not suspicion, not judgment, and not one difficult encounter, would steal the joy of the day they had worked so hard to achieve. Donna Carter stood motionless on her front lawn as the patrol car disappeared. Around the corner, the sound of its engine faded into the distance, but the frustration on her face only deepened. She had expected the officers to remove the new family from the neighborhood. Instead, they had congratulated them on their new home. She watched Marcus Bennett carry another box through the front door while Angela carefully arranged family photographs on the living room floor. Through the large front window, she could see laughter replacing exhaustion as their teenage daughter opened another box labeled bedroom. Donna's lips tightened. "This isn't over," she muttered to herself. Inside the Bennett home, the atmosphere slowly began to change. The unexpected visit from the police had certainly shaken everyone, but Marcus refused to let it define their first day. He looked around the empty living room with a gentle smile. "You know what?" he said. Angela looked up from unpacking dishes. "What, we're home?" She smiled back, this time with tears in her eyes. "Yes, we really are." Their daughter Maya dropped onto the hardwood floor, laughing. "I've already claimed the room with the bay window." Marcus chuckled. "I had a feeling you would." For a few precious moments, they allowed themselves to enjoy what years of hard work had finally earned them. Boxes still filled every room. The refrigerator was almost empty. Half the furniture remained inside the moving truck, but none of that mattered. The house already felt like home because they were building it together. Outside, Donna continued watching from behind the curtains. Every smile she saw irritated her. Every laugh convinced her that she needed to do something. She picked up her phone once again, not to welcome her new neighbors, not to introduce herself. Instead, she opened the Neighborhood Homeowners Association group chat. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. "Has anyone else noticed the new family next door?" Within minutes, replies began appearing. "Who are they? Didn't know the house sold." "Everything okay?" Donna smiled slightly before typing another message. "I've already had to call the police once." She didn't mention that the officers had found nothing wrong. She didn't mention the Bennetts legally owned the property. She simply allowed people to imagine the worst. Rumors have a way of growing much faster than truth across the street. Angela stepped onto the porch carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. She handed one to Marcus. "You handled yourself really well today." Marcus looked toward the quiet street. "My father always told me something." Angela leaned against the porch railing. "What was that?" "He said people may judge your skin before they know your character." Angela nodded. "I remember. But he also told me that character always outlasts prejudice." For several seconds, neither of them spoke. A warm breeze moved through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass across the neighborhood. Children laughed somewhere down the block. A dog barked in the distance. It sounded like every peaceful American neighborhood should. Marcus took a slow sip of lemonade. "I don't want Maya growing up believing every difficult person represents an entire community." Angela looked across the street. "Neither do I. There are good people here." She smiled. "And there are good police officers too." Marcus nodded. "Officer Collins and Officer Hernandez reminded me why integrity matters. They listened to. Everyone checked the facts, treated us with dignity, and did their jobs the right way. That's exactly what communities need." Angela reached for his hand. "Respect builds trust, it does. And trust is something worth protecting." At that very moment, Donna glanced through her curtains again. She saw the Bennetts sitting peacefully together on their porch. Instead of becoming discouraged, she became determined. If one phone call hadn't worked, perhaps another one would. She opened her contacts. Her thumb hovered over the emergency number for only a second before pressing the call button again. Neither Marcus nor Angela noticed. They were too busy planning where to plant flowers in the front yard and imagining the memories they hoped to build inside their new home. They had no idea that this first false report was only the beginning. The woman across the street had no intention of stopping. She believed she could force them out, one call at a time. What she didn't know was that every false accusation was quietly creating a record. Every unnecessary police response was adding another piece to a story that would eventually reveal the truth, not just about the Bennett family, but about the kind of person she had become. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with flashing lights. Sometimes it begins with patient people, honest officers, and a simple decision to let truth speak louder than prejudice. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were Marcus, Angela, or one of the responding officers? Share your perspective in the comments, because every voice adds something meaningful to the conversation. And let me know what kind of inspiring justice story you'd like to see next. Your ideas could inspire the next story we tell together.